What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'll be doing my World Cup roster for the US men's national team. And this is going to be my roster, not Greg Berhalter's, not what I think he'll do. This is going to be my choices for the squad that I think will give us the best chance of winning the tournament. This will have players who are frozen out of the team, players who might not make it, who probably won't make it, but I'm not going to call in any dual nationals who haven't committed to the US yet or something. So, with that being said, I think we're ready to get into the team and who I think gives the best chance to win it all. In goal, I'm going with Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, and Gabriel Slonina. So, this leaves off a couple of players you might have expected who I think will be on the roster, but I think I can explain everyone. Matt Turner is pretty self-explanatory. He's been such a good shot stopper for us, despite his deficiencies with the ball at his feet. He's too good of a player to leave off the team. You just need to have Matt Turner there because he's a goalkeeper who, when he's behind the ball, when he's in net, I just feel safe. Even if they have a one-on-one opportunity, I think Matt Turner will be able to keep the ball out of the net. He's been doing great with claiming crosses, and I think he's the best player that we can have for us. So Matt Turner is definitely going to be my starter. I have Ethan Horvath coming off the bench. I have him over Zach Steffen. They're both playing at a similar level in the championship, and I just have more faith in Ethan Horvath. We saw him come off the bench in the Nations League, where he had a great game for the USA team, then a good game in a friendly as well. This summer, he had a pretty poor one moment, but that was in a downpour, which I'm not going to hold it against him too much. We should take note of it, but I don't think that's the one game that's going to keep me from bringing Ethan Horvath, especially when he's probably our most well-rounded keeper, good at shot stopping, good with his feet. I think he has a ceiling to his talent. I don't think his shot stopping is as good as Matt Turner. Certainly not as it is right now. Maybe if he gets a lot more games under him, he can take his potential to the next level. But at the moment, Ethan Horvath will be my backup. I feel confident with him coming in off the bench and playing, but right now he's just going to be the backup. And lastly, we've got Gabriel Slonina. And everybody who says, why are you bringing an 18-year-old as our third-choice goalkeeper? Well, first of all, our third-choice goalkeeper isn't going to play. Aside from, situations like a penalty or maybe a third-place game where a manager wants to get everybody on the field, if there is one third-choice goalkeeper that plays a meaningful minute, I will be shocked. He's not going to be seeing the field, and I'd like to get Gabriel Slonina this World Cup experience because I think he's probably the best American U20 prospect right now. He has potential to be a world-class keeper with the start that he's had, and I think it's worth taking the risk of bringing him. And it's not like we're leaving anybody great at home. I'm not sure how big the difference is between Zach Steffen and Slonina. We've seen Slonina make some mistakes with Chicago Fire. We've seen Zach Steffen make a lot of mistakes with the national team. And those mistakes are really the thing that makes me want to hold back from bringing Zach Steffen. And on top of that, his injury record is just kind of bad, especially with Matt Turner not being 100%. I don't want to have a backup who is liable to go down at any moment. And because of that, I might even take a Sean Johnson over Zach Steffen, which that could be said. I think Zach Steffen is going to be our starter. He might come out and have an amazing tournament, but I think Horvath would as well. I think Turner will. And I don't think there's anything that Zach Steffen brings that we wouldn't get from another player. I don't like his injury record, and I want to give Gabriel Slonina this experience because come 2026, he could be amazing. Next, we have center back, and I'm going to be taking 6 of them. Something to keep in mind is that for major tournaments, it is typically a 23-man roster. But this year, we've been allowed to have 26 men on the roster, and I think that kind of changes how you look at things. Because typically, it's 3 goalkeepers, 10 starters at a field position, and 1 backup at every single position, giving you 23. This year, we have 3 free spots to throw out there. And because of that, I'm willing to put on somebody who's dealing with an injury who might become healthy later in the tournament. So because of that, I'm bringing Chris Richards to this. I know that he isn't healthy right now, but 1, like Slonina, I want to get him this experience at a World Cup. And 2, should we go far, which I have to hope we're intending to, if Richards can get healthy as the tournament progresses, he's our best center back, and I want him in this tournament. You say he doesn't have any games under him right now? Neither does Walker Zimmerman, who we are going to be bringing. So I really want to have Chris Richards in this team, and I think he can help us out a lot. But that will be later in the tournament. For now, we have to have starters who are ready to play. And I think the first one of those is going to be Cameron Carter-Vickers. He's been playing great at Celtic. He's been the top Scottish center back for a long time, Scottish League center back. And we've seen in Virgil van Dijk that those players can translate to a higher level. Then we've seen him play very well in the championship before, which is going to be the level of opposition we face in Wales. And I've had Cameron Carter-Vickers as my starter for the national team for a good amount of time, ever since Brooks really was having issues finding a club. So I would bring Cameron Carter-Vickers to this team, and I would have him be a starter. Speaking of John Brooks, he's in the team as well. I think that we know that he's not playing right now. Neither is Walker Zimmerman, saying that again. And we know his quality on the ball. He's the best American with the ball at his feet as a center back, and he can pick out passes with the best of them. While he isn't playing much at all, I see a path for us to integrate him into the team that I'll be talking about later, and I think he has too much quality to leave at home. On top of that, he's one of the few players on this team with World Cup experience. We also have DeAndre Yedlin, who may or may not be on the team. We could bring in Julian Green, which that ship has sailed. Honestly, if Brad Guzan was healthy, I probably would have had him as the third choice goalkeeper if I really wanted to win this tournament. And I think that there are reasons to bring John Brooks, and even if we wanted to bench him, even if you think this guy's washed, I think he should be there. Because from everything I can tell, especially because Tim Ream hasn't been back, I think Berhalter was serious about not liking John Brooks' play style. I don't think he's been a locker room issue, and I would have him in this team. Speaking of Tim Ream, he's another guy that I'd bring. While he doesn't have World Cup experience like Brooks, he's a very experienced player who I'd like to have in this team. He's been the captain at Fulham, and he's actually been playing relatively well this year. It's hard to really stand out as a center back when your team is constantly conceding 2 goals, but we know how good he is as a championship center back, and like I said before, that's who we're going to be facing when we play Wales. So because of that, I think there's a very good chance that he would do well if we started him against the Welsh opposition. Now, I'm not sure about this because there's a lot of athleticism in that team, but it's something to keep in mind. And strictly for his experience alone, I think Tim Ream is a valuable player to bring here. Then we have Walker Zimmerman, similar to Tim Ream, bring him because veteran in the room. We've seen him do pretty well as a backup, and especially in a situation where he was left off a roster altogether, and then, we had players pull out due to injury. He was called into it. He didn't take any hit to his ego. He took it in stride, came in and had a good game, granted against bad CONCACAF teams. But I like that in a player. I think he's consistent in his level of play. That means that I think if we play a bad team, he will have a good performance. If we play a middling team, he'll have a middling performance. If we play a good team, he'll have a bad performance. His level of play will stay the same. We know we're going to get out of Walker Zimmerman. And I think that's a lot more than a Mark McKenzie, who's been very inconsistent. Eric Palmer-Brown has been kind of hit or miss for this team. And especially for a player who I personally have as a backup, I would like to have Walker Zimmerman in the squad. And the last center back I'm bringing is James Sands, who could also double as a midfield player, which I think might be necessary. I'm going to get into that in the midfield, but he's played very well for Rangers. I think he's better now as a defender in a back 4, which was his main drawback. He's looked good in the midfield, had some very good games in Champions League qualification. He's taken to the Scottish League very well, and I think he's shown enough with this team. We saw him have a very good Gold Cup. He had one pretty bad game in World Cup qualifying where he's played out of position, but I think he's grown since then, and I would give James Sands a chance in this team. And because of his versatility where he can play both positions at a high level, especially if we go to a back 3, I really like him as a center back. I think he can cover midfield pretty well. I think that James Sands should be in this team. Then we have fullback, where I'm going with 4 players: Sergiño, Dest, Jedi Robinson, Joe Scally, and DeAndre Yedlin. So for Dest, pretty easy to have him in the team. I think he's an actual really good Champions League level attacking fullback. His defense leaves a little bit to be desired, and with our center backs not being the strongest position, with Brooks not playing, Chris Richards dealing with injuries, that might be a bit of a concern, but his offensive ability, I think, is enough to offset that. He can offer a lot of attack. He can cut in, go into the midfield. I think he has great chemistry with Tim Weah, and I think he's just a player who's undroppable at the moment. Jedi Robinson at left back, he's kind of similar. Even though I probably wouldn't have him as a great player, he's been pretty good for us. Shows a lot defensively, great athlete who I think might be able to really help us against that Welsh attack. And he can offer a bit going forward. He's been slightly inconsistent going forward, in my opinion, but I think we can live with that. He's our only left-footed left back who's any good at all, especially with Sam Vines being injured, though I don't think I'd have Vines in the team anyway. And Jedi Robinson really has to be in the squad. Then we have Joe Scally. He's been very good for Borussia Mönchengladbach, or at least good for a young player. He's had some struggles, and because of that, I don't have him starting. But for a young player, he's looked very good. I like him a lot more than a Reggie Cannon or a Shaq Moore. And I think Scally, he offers a good amount defensively, a good amount going forward. I think he's a bit more well-grounded than Sergiño Dest, probably better defensively as well. But Dest just has that home run ability offensively that I think we have to acknowledge. And maybe there are situations where you'd want to start Scally, and I could see maybe you put him in as like a winger late in a game to try to seal up a win, but I think you have to start Sergiño Dest. And lastly, we got DeAndre Yedlin, the second World Cup veteran who I'm keeping in this team. And Yedlin's here for his experience. It's not like a John Brooks where I think he deserves to be here based on merit, though the argument between him and Reggie Cannon, I think he would go either way, even if you're arguing strict quality. But DeAndre Yedlin is somebody who's been at a World Cup as a young player before, and I think that experience will really help a lot of our young guys just take to the tournament a lot better. And that's why I'd have Brooks in this team no matter what. Even if you're not going to have him starting, I really think it would be helpful to have John Brooks in this team. And I think DeAndre Yedlin will be very helpful, even if he's not going to be doing much on the field. Next, we're going into the midfield, and I should say that he'd be playing us in a 4-2-3-1, unlike the 4-3-3 we've been playing under Greg Berhalter. We have too many players who are just great as a 10, plus our 6 option, Tyler Adams, looks a lot better in a 4-2-3-1. So I think that's obviously what we should be doing, but what do I know? And then for the team, Tyler Adams, he's looked amazing for Leeds in that role. Great defensive midfielder, can cover a lot, he can connect play. I think he's not like a world-class player. We ask him to do a little bit too much in his role as a 6, and he hasn't looked great for the National League before, but we've seen how good he can be when the team is built around him like it is at Leeds, so I think he has to be in the squad. Next, I have Weston McKennie, who I've said this before with him, I said this in my other video. At his highest highs, Weston McKennie's the best player on this team. He's an extremely technical midfielder. He can make good runs in the box, great goal contributions, really good in the air, a threat on set pieces, a lot of bite in him defensively. He's a great box-to-box midfielder. There's a reason he's at Juventus. But that's him at his best. And when he's not at his best, he can give the ball away a lot, the goal threat goes away, and he's really a liability on the field. And Weston McKennie's currently dealing with an injury, so I'm not sure if we're going to be getting him at his best. So I'd say I probably wouldn't start him in the first game against Wales. There's reasons to be hesitant about playing him, but when he's on, he's on, and he can be a great player. Then we have Yunus Musah, extremely young player, but he looks good. Extremely technical, good athlete, offers a bit defensively. Not as much as McKennie, though I think as he gets older and as he continues to develop, he might offer more in the future. But just a really good player who we need to have in the team. At the current moment, I might be starting him because, like I mentioned with Weston McKennie, will he be available? I'm not sure, but he's a great option for us, and I said before, I think come 2026, there's a chance he's our best player. Luca de la Torre is coming back from an injury. While he won't be at 100%, he's been training, and I think he will be ready. He doesn't need to go 90 minutes. He's not going to be a starter for us. He's somebody who would sub on late in a game who you could really use to just get behind a defense because we know how quick he can combine with the ball. He moves the ball so fast. He can make good passes. I think we need to have Luca de la Torre in the squad, even if he's only ready for that Iran game. I'm serious. 15 minutes against Iran might be all we need from Luca, might be all we need to get to the knockout round. So I think it's worth bringing him. And as I mentioned before, we've got 3 free spots. I've talked about this before, so what? Even if he can't play at all, we don't lose anything. We've got 2 other backups at this position, and I feel good about bringing in Luca de la Torre. Lastly, we've got Kellyn Acosta, and Acosta is a very specific role player, similar to Luca de la Torre, where we sub him on late in a game if we are up a goal or it's 0-0 and we want to preserve a win. Or we want to preserve a 0-0 draw or 1-1 draw or whatever that will take us to the next round. I like him in that very specific situation, and I think that he does have a good role there. I don't think he's a very exceptional player. I definitely wouldn't start him. In fact, part of the reason why James Sands is there is to provide another backup. So let's say, knock on wood that this doesn't happen, but Tyler Adams gets injured in the first game, and let's say McKennie's still dealing with some fitness issues, Luca de la Torre still dealing with some fitness issues. I would feel better about starting James Sands in the midfield than starting Kellyn Acosta. And because that's why I bring Sands, and that's why I'm okay with bringing Acosta, because he just has to do this role where he can come on late in the game, help us get a win. And on top of that, I think he's a really good leader as well. He's not somebody with the good experience like a DeAndre Yedlin or a John Brooks, though I think Brooks is a very good leader too. But just strictly on the field, you can really see the leadership qualities in him. And we've seen Brooks get frozen out of the team. There's speculation that there might be issues there. And Weston McKennie can be a bit immature at times. Remember him breaking protocol. I think Acosta is probably the biggest leader on the team, at least from what I can tell, which isn't inside the locker room. So I definitely want to have Acosta here. He can come on in a very specific role and play that well, but I would not have him starting. Then we go to the 10, and I have Giovanni Reyna, Brenden Aaronson, and Malik Tillman. I think those three can really help us out, and all of them provide different skills. Gio Reyna, he's too talented to leave off the field, and I want to get him in this 10 position because I want him on the ball as much as possible. He's a goal threat. He's great with the ball at his feet, amazing dribbler. He's the most talented player on this team. We need to give him the ball, and we need to let him go to work because he can make stuff happen for us. Then Brenden Aaronson, he has to be in the team as well. And honestly, I think there are some games where I'd start him because Gio Reyna, we know his injury issues. We need to have another 10 ready to go. And Aaronson, I think he's going to be that guy for us because we see how amazing of a presser he is. He's added goals to his game. He can really dribble well, get at defenses. Good athlete. He provides some bite in the midfield. Even if we play him as an 8, I think he can do a job. You'd probably want to have a midfielder behind him, but he's a very good player, versatile. He can play wing as well. It's so good as a player. Right now, I'd start Gio Reyna over him, but I think you have to bring Aaronson on in every single game. And Malik Tillman, he's a bit more there for his potential, but we've seen him play some amazing games in the Champions League. I think he's somebody who can bring on late in a game, who could really impact. We see him as, he's a pretty good set-piece threat as well. He could play striker a bit. Not ideally, but he can play a bit of a false 9 role, maybe as a secondary striker. And I mostly am having him here over Jesus Ferreira. I gave it a lot of thought, and I decided to go with Malik Tillman over Jesus Ferreira. Even as a 10, I think Tillman provides a little bit more to this team. We see his potential. He got game time at Bayern Munich for a reason. You can't just look at a player's club and decide to bring him there. But I think he's going to be an amazing player, and I would like to get him this experience, and I think he deserves to be here talent-wise over Ferreira anyway. It's a very good group at the 10, and I really think we should be playing a 4-2-3-1, and would get the best out of a lot of our players. Maybe even a 5 at the back or something would really help, but I think we need to it would really help our strikers especially. We should be playing this formation. Then we have winger, and I'm only bringing 2 wingers, or 2 specialized wingers, I should say, in Christian Pulisic and Tim Weah. We have Brenden Aaronson, Giovanni Reyna, Malik Tillman, a couple of our strikers who can easily play that role as well. But Pulisic and Weah, I think they're both in the team. I think they're both starting. Pulisic, just such a good goal threat. Both of them can get in behind defensives. Both of them are goal threats. Pulisic can really take players on. Weah has shown a crossing ability that's been crucial for our team. And I think you need to get both of them on the field as much as possible. 2 dynamic players who can really stretch the defense, can take players on the dribble, and just great guys. Hopefully Pulisic will stay a bit more wide, I think. That could help us out so we can get the ball on the wing and cut inside. A lot of times he tries to do a bit too much in the build-up, which I think is a little bit needed, but hopefully with the team we have, it won't be necessary. So hopefully he can be at his best. Tim Weah, I said this before, he's the only player in this team who actually looks better for the national team than he does for his club. I'm hoping he can keep that form going. And those 2 are players who I feel very confident in. And even though we don't have any other true backups, I feel good about Aaronson could step in if he needs to. You got Reyna, some of the strikers who I'm going to talk about. And let's just get into the strikers. I have Josh Sargent, Jordan Pefok, and Ricardo Pepi. First, I'll be talking about Josh Sargent, who I'd have for our starter, at least for the first few games. And Sargent knows how to score against championship-level defense, against second-tier defenses. And I think that's what Wales has. I don't trust their quality in their defense. And we've seen how good Josh Sargent can be against lower levels of opposition. And, I've noticed that for a while. I've actually heard Herculez Gomez say that like a month after I did. I'm sure he watched my video and took the idea. I'm 100% positive on that. And I really like Josh Sargent to score against that Welsh team. When we get to games against higher levels of opposition, will he be great? Like, I don't think so, but he's still a young player. He'll continue to grow. And even as he is right now, I think he can cause an impact. And on top of that, he's an amazing presser. He can really get at defense. He's got a ton of energy. He plays as a winger a lot for Norwich, and that's because he's very skilled. He's good with the ball at his feet. He can bind. He can drop into the midfield. Like, hold-up plays pretty good. Like, he's everything we want out of a striker, especially against a lower opposition where I think he will be scoring goals. And on top of that, he's the other guy I mentioned who can cover for winger. So on top of Pulisic and Weah, we've got Aaronson, Reyna, Sargent. I think Tillman could do a job there. Musah has played out wide a little bit as well. And I'd feel good about starting Scally and pushing Dest up if we get into an emergency situation. Like, all those are better options than Ariel and Jordan Morris. Sorry. Then we got Jordan Pefok. I think just strictly quality-wise, he's probably our best center back, or our best striker. Now, I'm not starting him because I don't think he fits as well with our current team, and I'd want to build our squad around Christian Pulisic rather than building around a striker who's good, but he's not a Champions League level player. Well, at least not yet. We saw him do pretty well against Manchester United last year. But he's a guy who thrives off of when you put cross into the box, and I feel like that's really good for late in games. You could sub him on against tired defenses. I think that England and Wales will actually be able to handle him pretty well, but I think Iran, he might be able to cause a pretty big mismatch with them. So I really like Pefok in that situation, and he's become a lot more well-rounded, especially since joining the Bundesliga. A pretty good presser, pretty good at combining. I don't think he's as good as Sargent or Pepi or Ferreira or Haji Wright, but he's not bad at that by any means. And I would have him in this team for sure. I might have him start a couple of games, and I think he's a guy who we need to have. Then Ricardo Pepi, he's in here a lot to get him more experience. I think the conversation between him and Haji Wright, I think that's pretty tight. And if you want to argue that Haji Wright's a better player, I will listen to that argument. I might make that argument. But I think when you look at how young Pepi is and how much better he's going to be, I want to get him that experience, similar to Gabriel Slonina. And on top of that, he has been scoring very well recently, so I trust Ricardo Pepi enough. He's got amazing hold-up play. He has a lot of smart runs in him. He can get into the box. And I think he's what we need out of a striker, especially for the future. He's going to be an amazing player, and even right now he can impact games. Maybe you sub him on late in the game to try to do something, but I think Ricardo Pepi is somebody who I feel confident in. So that's my team. I have Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, Gabriel Slonina, Cameron Carter-Vickers, John Brooks, Chris Richards, Tim Ream, Walker Zimmerman, James Sands, Sergiño Dest, Jedi Robinson, Joe Scally, DeAndre Yedlin, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musah, Luca de la Torre, Kellyn Acosta, Brenden Aaronson, Gio Reyna, Malik Tillman, Christian Pulisic, Tim Weah, Josh Sargent, Jordan Pefok, and Ricardo Pepi. And this is a team that I feel very good about. We have a lot of quality in there. I think we'll be able to get the better of the opposition if we play like this. I'm confident in these players, and I think we have the talent to go far if we get the best out of them. I look at that Welsh team, and listen, like Gareth Bale, I saw what he did against my Philadelphia Union, but he's not the player that he used to be. Like Brendan Johnson, Daniel James, they're only so good as players. Kiefer Moore, he's big, but he's not a great talent. Their midfield's kind of washed. Their defense isn't strong outside of Ben Davies. I think their keeper situation is worse than ours. Danny Ward's actually come around a little bit, but he's not better than Matt Turner. I don't think he's better than Zach Steffen when Steffen's at his best. And like Wayne Hennessy's a walking disaster. And Iran, they're a very cohesive team, but I don't think we can be sure about how good they are. They recently rehired their manager. Maybe things aren't going to be perfect just yet. It'll be a tough ask, and anybody overlooking them is kind of stupid, but we have more talent than them. And then England, like, they're a very beatable team. Like, aside from, like, Qatar, maybe France, due to all the injuries that they're facing, like, they're one of the most beatable Pot 1 teams. Like, they've got a really weak defense, especially due to their injuries. Like, Southgate, like, I understand he's being, like, loyal to players who have brought him success before, but Harry Maguire's a weak link. I think Kieran Trippier, he's probably going to start at right wing back. He's not great. Luke Shaw, especially because Ben Chilwell's down, him at left wing back, he's not going to be great. Like, John Stones, like, I get why he's good, but do you remember that story of, like, that League Two player calling him out and then scoring on him again in the FA Cup? Like, he's only so good. Then they're fourth, like, who, Eric Dyer? Like, this is a beatable team. And I think if we really go at them, we have the chance to get the better of them. Now, will we? I don't know. Probably not. They're a much better team than us, but I think we have a chance to get the better of them. I'm also going to give my starting lineups for each game, and I think it'd be different in every single game, but we can talk about what I do. So, in goal for Wales is going to be Matt Turner. At center back, I'm going to have Tim Ream and Cameron Carter-Vickers. I'm not as sure about Tim Ream, but we saw how good he was in the championship last year. And despite Brennan Johnson and Daniel James's pace, I think, especially with Jedi Robinson next to him, he'll be able to deal with it. He'll be able to do well. Then at fullback, Jedi and Dest, pretty self-explanatory. At the two in the midfield, I have Tyler Adams and Yunus Musah. Weston McKennie, he might not be 100% yet. I'd want to start Musah over him. For the front four, we have Pulisic, Reyna, Weah, and Josh Sargent. Just, in my opinion, the best players that we can bring. All of them great on the ball, can make chances happen. I think they could be very good. Then against England, I'm going to be changing things up a bit. And my view for that England game is we're kind of playing with house money. We're not expected to win that game. And I think we can really give them our best chance. We can give them a real shot. So I'd go with Matt Turner in goal. I'd go with John Brooks as our left center back. Cameron Carter-Vickers as our other one. Like, if this is the time to get John Brooks reintegrated into the team, see if he can play. If he can't, like, okay, it's fine. We lose against England. That was supposed to happen anyway. But if he can be really good, he can be great for us and really help us. Then Jedi Robinson and Dest as our fullbacks. Adams and McKennie in the midfield, similar to Brooks. Like, if he can't go, so what? We lose against England. Like, and if he can, and he can play really well and really get going, that's amazing for us. Then for our front three, Pulisic and Weah on the wing. I want to really press this team. I think we can give them a lot of trouble. Let's have Aaronson be in the midfield, and I really don't want to play Reyna 2 group stage games in a row. I think that's a recipe for disaster. So Aaronson in the middle of the field, and then Josh Sargent up front. He can really press them, and I say just go for it against England. Put our best, like a best case scenario. Maybe we can get the better of them. Like, I can see really pressing Harry Maguire into giving the ball away. Eric Dyer, I think we can give them our best shot. Then against Iran, similar, I'll have Matt Turner in goal. I just kind of have, like, whoever is the best center back we have. Like, if Tim Ream had an amazing game, we can go with Tim Ream. If John Brooks had an amazing game, we go with John Brooks. If neither of them performed, maybe Chris Richards is ready. We could even fall back to Walker Zimmerman. I don't think that's ideal, but we could do that. Cameron Carter-Vickers as well, Dest and Jedi. Adams in the midfield, then whoever was the best out of McKennie and Musah, then Pulisic, Weah, Reyna, and I'd actually have Pefok be up front. I don't think this is an Iran team that's going to be trying to build out the back. I think just having our best finisher in the box, I think that'll be crucial for us. I think they'll give us enough time that we won't need a striker to really be combining. I just want to have that fox in the box who can put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, that's my thoughts on our current team. What I'd want to bring for this team. I'm hoping that I got, I don't think Horvath or Slonina will be there. Brooks probably not. I don't think Richard will be there. I didn't predict Tim Ream would be there, but from what I'm seeing now, he probably will be. James Sands probably won't be there. I'm really not sure about Scally. Probably not Luca de la Torre. I don't think Pefok will be there. So that's like 8 players who probably won't be there, and I think I would have probably played all of them. Maybe not Sands, but it's, I think this team, if we put our best foot forward and we really go at them with all the talent that we have, putting players in position to succeed, I think we can get out of this group relatively easily. I think we might be able to win the thing. But if we don't, and we stick with Aaron Long as a center back, we don't have a striker who can score goals, I'm struggling to see us advancing, because that Welsh team, they know how to get out of group stages. England is just too talented, and that Iran team is probably looking like the most cohesive unit in this entire group stage. So it's going to be very tough, but if we put our best foot forward, I think we'll be able to get out of the group stage. And yeah, that's all I'll talk about right now. See ya.